Welcome to the NJ Criminal Podcast, and part 2 in this series.
Through the course of your studies and your background in GIS, did you ever do any type of research related to different areas of the country and how prisoners who are released fare on this topic, or no?
I've read some research. One of my last classes this past semester was a correctional policy class. And so we read a lot of research on that, but I haven't done any actual projects or anything with GIS. It's one of those things that's studied, but I'm not sure what level they study it at. It's probably a state level, so it's kind of hard to look at with GIS. It's probably a bigger issue than you think, and again, you don't see it in every community. It mostly focuses on, disadvantaged communities of color. Mm-hmm. And that's where it hits the hardest, and that's the community that has the most problems in institutional racism as it is. So it's like a double whammy.
I would be curious to see if anyone has done a state-by-state analysis looking at things like ability to get housing, ability to get a job, recidivism, that type of thing on this topic of prisoner reentry. I think it's being able to compare and contrast different states' criminal justice systems, and is always a way of leading to reform, right? Right. For example, on the front end, I know there were many states, New Jersey being one of them, that within the last several years have changed how they handle bail and have eliminated cash bail and have moved towards a non-cash bail type of system. So I'm just curious, looking at it on the back end, whether or not there are different states that have really had better results in helping people who have done their time, have been released from prison, and have helped them in the job front, and et cetera.
I mean, and again, it's almost apples and oranges because the states are so different when it comes to their approach. I know California has a reentry program that allows prisoners to, go to community college or junior college at either free or reduced rates. And, they have a rep who will be in the college who kind of helps manage that population and get them through the process, because a lot of people are still leaving prison without even a GED or a high school diploma. I know where I was incarcerated, we had one of the few active college programs in the country. And I've got lots of people I know that are still locked up who are in that college program who have gotten out and finished their degree and kind of moved on. And so stuff like that is extremely helpful. And it's not just the great, I've got a college degree, it's the networking and everything that goes with that. Like you've kind of done more than most people do when they get out of prison. Right. Mostly it's just a survival thing. I have to get a job. So then you're stuck working like an Amazon warehouse for 2 years because you have to have a job. That doesn't give you a lot of room to grow, and there's not a lot of energy left at the end of the day to, pursue something like educational or technical training.
Right. Now, you were not incarcerated in New Jersey,
I was not.
But I guess just dovetailing off of what you just said, do you think it is important for prisoners to take advantage of programs and opportunities available to them while they are incarcerated? Do you think that that's an important step towards, establishing, probably not only to the parole board, but also to society in general, that they are motivated to, put the incident behind them and be productive members when they are released?
It is. It's extremely important. But again, they're all very limited because funding is always an issue, and most of them are done on a volunteer basis. The state isn't paying for educations. They might use a Pell Grant to do the college coursework, but most of the college work or the college tuition was paid through by private donors. And so that stuff has to be funded to be successful. And if you have enough programs so that everybody can go, it becomes a much better thing. And the people who are trying to improve, who are trying to rehabilitate, are the ones who are going to find those programs and use them. But if the prison system isn't set up to allow for that, if there's only one prison in the whole state that has that program, then it's not really doing anyone anything. It's almost gatekeeping, success. If I don't get sent to that prison, I don't even have a chance of going to college. So how do I get to that prison? And it's not an easy thing to, get a transfer just to pursue an education in the prison. Nobody wants to hear that.
Right. I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, let's just jump into, go backwards a little bit. Through the course of either your own experience or your studies, what is your opinion or knowledge related to, area states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and their prison systems, and how well they do in this particular area?
So my experience was in Maryland, and they generally do okay. They have programs at the medium and higher level. That was one of the big things I noticed. Once you get to the minimum or pre-release level, there's almost no programs whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And that is the opposite of what it should be, because the people who are at the minimum and pre-release levels are leaving in, I believe it's like 7 years or less. Pre-release usually out the door in 3 years, and minimum, you have at least 7 years left on your sentence.
Okay, and that's in Maryland.
That's in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And so these are the people who probably need the most programs, but they don't have them because nobody goes into those prisons.
Tell me about the things that you did while you were incarcerated, and how those things, helped you when you were released. And I guess on top of that, what advice would you give to individuals who are facing incarceration as to how to better position themselves for not only, parole, but also a successful transition when released?
I mean, prison's like everything else. It's who you know. And, you stay away from the guys who are considered troublemakers, and you find, and again, in my experience, the lifers are the ones who are the most even-keeled people in prison. They've been there at the medium level probably 15 plus years, and so they're settled in. They're not doing anything crazy. They don't want to get in trouble because they know there's still a chance of parole, and they do everything they can to kind of just keep their prison record clean and get through the day. And so the lifers was the group I hung out with in prison mostly. And because they've been there so long, they typically have the best jobs. And again, in prison, the best job is the one that pays, more than $3 a day. The basic jobs start at 50 cents a day. And you can kind of live on $3 a day if you're not too, I guess, not too greedy when it comes to commissary. But I mean, I did all types of things. I was a library clerk. I was a print shop clerk. I worked in the school as a clerk. And again, that's because I knew how to use computers, and, I could sit there and type up a school schedule, and, the principal could just hand me something and I could typically make it better, or, put together mm-hmm. a spreadsheet for what she needed. So
they were probably sorry to see you go.
Right. And that's one of the things. I currently have a friend who's still incarcerated, and he's been working in the print shop and pre-publication, doing Adobe Photoshop for 15 years. And he's really the only one there right now who knows how to do it. And he has a chance to get out this summer. And so, he's like, I don't know who's going to do the work after I'm gone, but that's not my problem.
Right.
He's not worried about that. It's definitely not his problem, but there's a stability in, the fact that the lifers are there for so long, and they kind of do most of the heavy lifting when it comes to the jobs there.
when you when you were released and decided to go back to school, ultimately getting your master's or going to graduate school, did you ever think about focusing your studies on the topic of either prison reform or prisoner reentry?
I did, and it was definitely going to be something I approached in some way. Even my getting released from prison was an issue because I used the interstate compact to transfer from Maryland to New Jersey.
Yeah, talk to me about that. That's an interesting topic, and probably not something that everybody is familiar with.
It's not, but it was one of the most, I don't even know how to describe it. It was one of the most torturous processes in bureaucracy that I've ever been a part of. To the point where you basically...
And you were used to bureaucracy. You'd been in the Army for 10 years.
I thrive in bureaucracy. I can generally navigate, federal level bureaucracy very well, but to get two states' parole offices to basically agree that my paperwork is good and everything's all right, I had to get a sitting U.S. senator involved down in Maryland. So I had a senator's office basically, force Maryland to do the paperwork. New Jersey actually seemed to be pretty quick on their end, but Maryland couldn't push the paperwork through. And so when I was released, I was basically homeless for 2.5 months.
So you had put that paperwork in prior to your parole with the eye towards moving to New Jersey once actually released.
That paperwork was actually done 6 months prior to my release date.
Why did you want to move to New Jersey?
Well, and so the issue was I have family in New Jersey. I was actually living with my sister, and her husband traveled for work. And so the agreement we came up with is I would help her out with her kids and, running them to appointments and school and, sports stuff. And then I would go to school full time using my GI Bill. And so when I was done school, I would move out. And that's kind of what happened, except for the pandemic. And so not being able to move out immediately upon my graduation from my undergrad kind of helped me decide to go and pursue the master's degree.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned. There is more to come. Don't forget to subscribe and like the show on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you listen.